Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Weather on the Go. My name is Hunter. On this Thursday, May 29th, 2025, we're talking severe weather in the short term along with locally heavy rainfall. And then as we go here in the long range, we're going to talk about Father's Day weekend into early June and your tropical weather update as a tropical storm Alvin has formed in the East Pacific. We'll talk about the Atlantic side as well. Stick around through the video. We'll get you the information that you need. So subscribe to the channel. We do daily weather forecast videos here on the channel. Like the video if you like it, give it a thumbs up, and share it with friends, family, and on social media. We have severe weather, again, you guessed it, across Texas, the deep south, the Gulf Coast, the southeast as we go into this afternoon. As we go into Friday, it's more of the southeast, including the Carolinas here, all the way up to Virginia, as we end the week here on Friday, May 30th. So we're going to be keeping an eye on the severe weather. Culprit for that is an upper level low up here into the Midwest, and south of that we have a lot of moisture and instability and a little bit of wind shear as well, combining for ingredients for severe weather as we go through today. Watch the trough though really start to develop deeper as we go into tomorrow. That's really going to elevate our severe weather on the southeastern flank of this across Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and northern Florida. So that is why we're seeing that as we end this work week. Let's look at the day one outlook for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center, and we used to have a couple areas of a slight risk of severe weather in yellow across west central Texas, another area here into southeastern Georgia, up into South Carolina, also including Jacksonville there in northeast Florida. So we're keeping an eye on that. Main threats here: damaging winds, 60 to 70 mile per hour caliber. We could be seeing quarter-size hail. Hailstones in West Texas, again today, could be up to baseball size. We saw that yesterday, could likely see that again today, and we could see a localized elevated tornado risk. In brown there in western Texas, in south of Lubbock, we could see a 5% chance of tornadoes. Green chances here are 2%. Notice you can see there in West Texas, we got green in the mid-Mississippi Valley, we got green from New Orleans over here toward Mobile and Panama City, and we got green over here in Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, up to Myrtle Beach. So we got a lot of areas at risk for tornadoes and or water spouts today, so we're keeping an eye on that. Let's look at the southeast here. Here's at noon, we got a cluster of showers and storms spreading across the southeast. These will be scattered, so not everybody will see showers and thunderstorms. If you do get under one of these stronger storm cells, of course, winds, damaging winds, that could be hail, large hail that could be, and obviously tornadoes and water spouts there as well. Something we're keeping a close eye on through the afternoon and the evening. Once the sun sets, I think a lot of this will be pushing towards the Carolinas and weakening out as we lose the daytime instability. So that is something to watch out for as we go through the evening hours. How about the southern plains vicinity? Well, here at noon, pretty quiet outside of a few showers and renegade rumbles of thunder from Kansas eastward into the mid-Missouri Valley. Here at 3 o'clock, we're watching initiation of storms in southeastern New Mexico, far west Texas. By 5 o'clock, those could develop into supercells and they'll be semi-discrete. So that means they will have more room for inflow. So tornadoes will be possible, damaging winds 60 to 70 miles per hour, and baseball size hail will be possible with those storms. And as we go after dinner, these will cluster up, potentially producing more of a wind and hail threat versus a tornado threat because they're starting to cluster up. As we go into the evening hours, those will slip into portions southeast into central Texas, and we could see some additional storms developing into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That won't be, my friends, until about midnight tonight, and then those storms will be moving southeast with an outflow as they move toward coastal Texas. Now, this is a updraft helicity track. So this shows you how long-lived these storms could be, for one, and for two, how intense they will be. The brighter the color, the more likely you're going to see a significant updraft, and you correlate that a significant updraft, you're likely going to see a stronger storm, and as a result, you could see damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. Look at how short-lived these storms will be. So once these storms go severe, they may be severe for 10, 20 minutes, then they'll weaken out, they'll redevelop, and we'll see more severe weather for, again, another 10, 20 minutes, they'll weaken out. So we're not really seeing any long-lived longevity type storms over here that will be severe in the southeast. How about Texas? Well, stronger updrafts over here could be producing potentially bigger hail, again, baseball size, and we could be seeing 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts, tornadoes, and that is where we see it here. In western Texas, we also could be seeing some bigger storms in New Mexico, but the bullseye here is West Texas. We'll be keeping a very close eye on. And notice the tracks are pretty long with this. So once these storms develop, they could actually be severe for quite a while. So it's something to keep an eye on if you're near Lubbock, Midland, those areas, keeping an eye on that as we go through the evening hours. Tomorrow, Friday, May 30th, we got severe weather from Virginia southward into Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Also, a backdoor cold front producing the potential of some severe weather isolated in eastern and southeast Wisconsin. Northeast Illinois. This includes Chicago, Kenosha, Racine, Madison, all the way down into the Rockford and Chicago areas there. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on that as we do go into Friday. Now, the biggest threats are going to be winds, hail, but a couple tornadoes are possible, most likely down here at 2% across southern Virginia, the central Carolinas, and south central Georgia as we go through Friday. So let's look at both of these combined. You can see as we go through the morning hours, we got a cluster of showers and storms moving through the lower Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley. This will spread some heavier rains through the Smoky Mountains, the Cumberland Plateau, and through the Appalachians as well, going through midday Friday. We are watching storm initiation down here and a re-intensification too of storms across the western Carolinas. They'll push into eastern portions of the Carolinas, and as they push east, they could be potentially bringing some winds, hail, and a couple tornadoes. Now, a backdoor cold front could bring some isolated severe weather to Milwaukee, Racine, Madison, into Kenosha, Waukegan, Chicago, Rockford, those areas as we go into Friday evening. Something to keep an eye on if you have any concerts to attend or festivities over there for the end of the week. Something to keep an eye on there for the Windy City, if you will. Now, here is the updraft helicity tracks for tomorrow to show you how long-lived or short-lived these storms will be. Pretty much the longevity of these will be pretty short. So again, like today in the southeast, 10-20 minutes at a time, we could have some severe weather. They could put down some 60, 70 mile an hour winds, some quarter-size hail, an isolated tornado, and that will be all she wrote as we go through the end of the day on Friday. Now, as far as precipitation goes, the heaviest will be across the northeast into the mid-Atlantic, parts of the southeast getting some soaking rains as well. It'll be few and far between. So if you get some thunderstorm activity, could get some localized heavier amounts. If you get shower activity, it might be a little bit lighter. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. But there will be many areas here in the eastern seaboard that pick up to 2 inches worth of rainfall. Talk temperatures for late this week. We are seeing cooler air in the central United States, and that will continue really through the upcoming weekend for the eastern U.S. Now, the West, we're going to be talking about record heat building across the West as we go into this upcoming weekend, especially there for Saturday, May 31st. Here's Thursday today. High temperatures in the 60s and 70s up across the north central United States, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Northeast. Warmest of our air, Phoenix, 100 this afternoon, 100s and upper 90s down into southern Texas. And you guessed it, dry Florida back into the 90s this afternoon. As we go into Friday, cooler in Florida. Actually, might actually see it daytime high in North Florida in the upper 80s for once. Actually, not in the 90s tomorrow. 104 in Phoenix. And then here comes the Sacramento Valley with the record heat as we go into Friday. And if we don't see it then, Saturday, that'll spread all across the Sacramento Valley, all through Nevada, eastern Oregon, Idaho, all the way up into western Montana, where you see these numbers boxed out. Those are your high temperature maximums, and that could be record territory. Now, the Northeast is going to be the cool game in town into the 60s there to start the weekend. That is for sure. Now, winds are going to be pretty light this afternoon, so not too worried about wind gusts across the United States over the next 24 hours. As we go into Friday, could be a little breezy here across the mid-Mississippi Valley, up there into the Midwest and northeastern Montana. Some gusts there over 20 miles per hour. And then heading into Saturday, a pretty light winds, steering flow, very light here in the central eastern U.S. Breezy there into the Pacific Northwest, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. How about temperatures going into early June? Well, Monday, June 2nd through Friday, June 6th, we're going to see some warmer temperatures favored for the Great Lakes region in southeastern Canada and some cooler air underneath of that. And looking at the warming trend, you can see 90s favored early next week for the Twin Cities, areas like Des Moines and Kansas City. And then as we go into Tuesday, the 90-degree line will shift east into Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Memphis. Those areas we'll be keeping an eye on there as we go into Tuesday, June 3rd. And we're watching a trough that's going to start to develop here. We got a cutoff low that's going to get ingested by a stronger trough in southern Canada and produce one big storm as we go through later next week with a cold front. And already the Storm Prediction Center, 5 days out, confident in severe weather from western Minnesota down into South Dakota and the panhandle of Nebraska. All modes of severe weather, damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes all in play there as we go into Monday, June 2nd. Dew points are going to be surging north into the Dakotas, into the upper 60s to near 70 degrees. Instability locally extreme up here to about 5,000 joules per kilogram will definitely get the job done. And a glancing blow of the stronger jet stream here associated with our parent trough up here in southern Canada will provide some wind shear for storm organization and intensity. So here's Monday morning on June 2nd. We got some isolated storm activity, a big line of storms. This is a squall line, so damaging winds and hail should be the main risk, but a couple kinks in that line or any storms that develop ahead of that line in supercellular form could be in forming into tornadoes. So keeping an eye on that. That'll go into Monday evening and weakening as it pushes south toward Lincoln and Omaha. That'll be on a weakening trend as we go into that time frame. Overall, as we go through next week, Monday, June 2nd through Friday, June 6th, we're looking at the wettest weather across the southern tier of the United States, but the central U.S. getting wetter. Here's Tuesday. Severe weather will be possible on Tuesday across portions of the central and southern plains. And then as we go into Wednesday, this is more favored for severe weather from the Midwest down there into the southern plains again. Thursday comes along, again, severe weather, Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, down into the lower Mississippi Valley. And then on Friday, more of a soaking rain for the Northeast, but down here into Dixie Alley in the Southeast, some isolated severe weather cannot be ruled out as we go into next Friday on June 6th. Overall, some pretty heavy rainfall is favored across the middle of the country. Most widespread and heavy down here from Texas into Arkansas, southern Illinois, and over there into Dixie Alley. But areas in the upper Midwest like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, back into Nebraska, eastern South Dakota could see a nice soaking rain up there with a couple inches of rain through next week. We're keeping an eye on that. A lot of disagreements going on as we go into the long range, as you can expect, but significant ones that you don't expect. So here is the week 2 of June. This is June 7th through the 14th. This takes you into Father's Day weekend. The GFS extended ensemble is much warmer east of the Rockies, in the plains, in the Midwest, and the eastern seaboard, and cooler to the west. Look at the Euro extended ensemble. It is much cooler. It's a complete 180 here, and it's warmer in the west and cooler in the middle. So that is going to affect precipitation. The GFS extended ensemble has northwesterly flow with thunderstorm clusters developing in southern portions of the Canadian prairies, slipping southeast into the upper Midwest, the northern Ohio Valley, Great Lakes in the Northeast, and the tropical influence of what may happen in the Caribbean is more toward Florida and the Western Atlantic versus the Gulf. Now, what about the European extended ensemble for precipitation? Well, we shut off the valve apparently to the northwest flow over top, and it's more of a tropical influence of moisture and more into the Gulf, affecting more of the Gulf Coast states. So a lot of disagreements with our temperature trends, with our precipitation trends as we go into the second week of June. So we're going to have to get more clarity on that as we do get closer. And you be sure that we'll get that for you here on this channel. Let's look at the tropical weather update here as well. We have through June 8th, there is not much of a chance of a tropical depression forming right now in the Western Caribbean. The European ensemble, the GFS ensemble is not showing it. The Canadian ensemble is not showing it. So all this chatter about a hurricane heading into the Gulf is hogwash. We're not really seeing anything here developing over the next 7 to 10 days in the Caribbean. So that's some great news. Could we see some tropical rain? Sure. Are we seeing a hurricane? Likely not going to be seeing that. But we do have Alvin over here, and let's look at Alvin, and that is a tropical storm right now just to the south and west of Mexico, and it's going to remain a mid-grade to strong-grade tropical storm over the next 48 hours or so, and then weakening back to a tropical depression as we go into Sunday. Right now, Alvin is moving northwest at 10 miles per hour and maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. We're tracking Alvin here on the European model, and notice it's going to weaken out just as expected by the National Hurricane Center to a tropical depression once we get to the latter half of the upcoming weekend. But watch Alvin spread moisture up there, monsoonal moisture for the Four Corners region, and that, my friends, could give us some much needed moisture for areas that have been hot. So Phoenix, Southern California over here into portions of New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, up into Wyoming could see some plenty of moisture as we go into early next week for early June. And some areas here from eastern Arizona into much of Colorado, New Mexico into portions of Utah and southeastern Wyoming could get a nice drink of water with a couple inches of rainfall. Now, Southern California doesn't look to show much right now. It really just depends on the track. The track is more likely turning right, so we're seeing it more turning into Arizona than Southern California. If the track of Alvin takes it a little bit further west, then that means southern Nevada and southern California, including San Diego and Las Vegas, could see more rainfall. But that is to be determined here, as Alvin's track is right now more to the right. So that means it's going to be more for the Four Corners region than those areas further to the west. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, thumbs up down below, comment any questions you may have, and subscribe to the channel. We do daily weather forecast videos here, and I'll see you all in the next video.